guys, welcome back. This is GN Inspire, and in this episode I'm gonna share with you a recorded edited version of the conversation that I had at the Cheche bookstore in Lavington that was moderated by Omondi Agar. I hope you enjoy.
My next question was supposed to be what were her mentors and role models and how are they involved, and she's mentioned that it was her brothers. The reason why I say that is we are in a feminist space, and representation is very important. It's very important for you to see yourself in someone who is successful, someone who's doing something that you want to do in the future. Right? It's a very valid criticism that we don't really have that in our factored into our education system, right? Me, when I was had I been told when I was in class 2 that I'll never be an astronaut, I would stop trying to be one and work on something else, right? Yeah. And I think now there's something you're doing with regards to that, right?
With regards to mentorship. Yes. I am a product of lots of people reaching out and mentoring me, like we've mentioned, my brothers, and so many other people that I've met along the way, my professors. And so that's why I am intentionally always trying to look back and lend a hand and help other people, particularly like where I grew up. Those days, I think education is now a priority, but I feel like those days it wasn't really a thing. And so, yes, I have some programs running in my local former primary school. And then when I get time, occasionally I do go to those local schools to just share my story. Like you said, it's important for people to see someone like them. And so when I go back and I'm like, I was here sometimes back, and I've kind of managed to get to where I am. And so also you can try and see what you can do with what you have and make something out of it.
Excellent. Yes. So now there's a huge jump after we've talked about that. I wanted to compare two things.
Yes.
So by the time personally I was hearing about you, you'd already graduated out of Oxford and you had the PhD.
Yes.
So which one was more rewarding? You graduating age 28 with a PhD, or the jump that you had KCSE 298 out of 500 and you managed to turn that into a first class degree in mechanical engineering? Which one released more dopamine in your brain?
Interesting question.
Yeah.
I'm tempted to say the PhD one, just because for the guys and you've gone through the PhD journey, just because it's a serious roller coaster, and you emerge from the other side and you're like, whew, I'm happy I survived. So I'm tempted to say that, but I want to also say I think the first class one is memorable, and it meant a lot to me because we were kind of breaking stereotype. And I was even writing the other day on LinkedIn, and I was just reflecting back to when we were, and it was an encouragement actually to especially ladies who are about to join universities and colleges to do STEM courses. When I joined JQuat, they used to call it Juja boys. Because we had few female in the campus. And so when we joined, we were 8 or 9 ladies in a class of like 80 students.
Wow.
And I remember our classmates asking, just curiosity, like the way you were asking, like, why did you choose engineering? But then they were asking in this kind of
sort of condescending way.
I even don't know if it was condescending or like pity. It was actually more of pity. Like, why did you choose this thing and you will not manage it? And he was telling me that apparently someone told him that women do not go past that year just because the course is hard. And it actually scared me. And at some point I was thinking, did I choose the wrong course? Maybe I should have chosen something softer or something less serious than engineering. But anyway, I got so many A's in that first year. I got so many A's in second year, and finally got first class. And we were 4 women with first class honors out of 9. And so I want to say, actually, I think that means a lot because we were literally breaking stereotype through the journey.
Yes. So there are going to be so many barriers put in front of you when you are joining JQuat, but you're able to. So that's a bit interesting because most of the people I speak to, and I think maybe Dr. will tell us about it, they usually say that the PhD was the hardest period of their life. Like they had to stretch themselves in ways that they would have not known to be possible. So do you have anything to say about that? Or you feel like you've already been stretched?
Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. Now, I think the memorable part was the life at JKUAT. But yeah, I think the PhD journey for sure, and maybe because that was most recent.
Okay.
Yeah. It was, like I mentioned, it was kind of a roller coaster, and you always felt. I think someone told me the summary in this book, like this constant confusion kind of accompanies you from day one to the end, and you always feel like you are in the mesh, and you just don't know. Yeah, you are just confused throughout. And that's why I wrote the book, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I wrote the book at the end, giving kind of looking back to some of the tips that I think helped me.
Okay.
So, for instance, trying to balance your hobbies and the research at the same time, just to be sane. Otherwise, the thing can just like drive you crazy. So, anyway, the PhD for sure, hands down. It was difficult, and I think also because I was a minority, and so that adds the social aspect. I didn't have a good support system because the entire time I was in my lab, I was the only Black woman there, the only one from an African institution, and I went directly from my bachelor's degree. And so I had a lot of learning, a steep learning curve in a not so supportive lab. And so it was also very difficult in that social aspect. In addition now to the real thing, the real PhD thing. And so I think that social aspect kind of compounded the difficulty.
Wow, very interesting.
How did you find it?
Yeah, so I think for me it was a combination of a number of things that basically convinced me not to go on with it. I realized that every single person advising me on what career path to take, they have an axe to grind. Like they're not advising you based on how useful they think you're going to be for society. They're advising you based on how can they benefit from you.
Okay.
I'll give an example, and Joe knows I'm starting to stop hating molten salt reactors. So what happened is we had this professor. I hope he never sees this YouTube, because he knows exactly. Not. Yeah. So this professor, he's giving the only course in Europe for fourth generation nuclear reactors, which is what I more or less specialized in towards the end of the master's, and had started with the PhD. So when I took this course, I left the course knowing that lead-cooled reactors are the bomb. There's no other reactor. Like people, there's a friend of mine who has a startup in Denmark, Seaborg. He's doing molten salt, and I would like publish thesis every time he posts anything about his research and his company. Yeah. So every comment section you go to, you find like Agar thesis there, telling him why molten salt reactors cannot work. And then I found myself in a space where I was interacting with molten salt reactors, and I sort of had to choose between these two technologies. But then thinking back at home, I knew there was no way our first reactor was going to be molten salt reactor or lead-cooled reactor. It was definitely going to be water-cooled. And at a certain age, you don't want to waste time investing in stuff that you feel that won't benefit you. 4 years when I'm 33. By the time I'm down, I'm 37. So why invest this much when you're not interested? I'm not interested in staying in Sweden to work on their lead-cooled reactor, or to go to Denmark for the molten salt reactor. I want to come back home and chill. And so that cost-benefit analysis, I was like, nah, let me just go home and see what happens.
Okay.
I've seen what's happened. Yeah. So yeah, that's a discussion for another day.
All right. All right.
Now, so would you say that your Kenyan upbringing shaped your perspective as a student at Oxford and also at MIT? So far, you've talked so much about Oxford. You haven't talked much about MIT. And this one, I'm not sure if you're going to answer it genuinely, but I'll hear what you have to say.
Yes.
What's the most significant culture shock you experienced during your studies at specifically Oxford and MIT?
No, I will definitely answer. But the first one is, you're asking if my upbringing in Kenya shaped my experiences and perspective. 100%. Where you were born and raised definitely influences your look, your perspective on things, and all those things. Yeah. So for me, 100%. And I want to say, like, while I never appreciated, at least to the level I appreciate now, our culture, our languages, and I remember I was pushing you to talk about all the languages you know. I really now appreciate our cultures. I feel like there's so much we are losing while we aspire to adopt Western cultures and everything. And it was the first time that I really appreciated that I know how to speak Kale. It was the first time that I really appreciated my curly African hair. The first time I really appreciated my African skin. I had never thought about those things. And so I want to say, just because I grew up in Kenya and then now going to like really mostly white dominated space and those experiences. Yeah, so definitely did shape both at Oxford and at MIT. Even the reason why I chose to I got Schmidt-Science Fellowship. For those of you guys, especially even online, who have PhDs in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and you are towards the end of your PhD or you have your PhD already, there is this amazing fellowship, Schmidt-Science Fellowship. You should definitely check it out. So after my PhD, I got the Schmidt-Science Fellowship, and they asked me to choose whichever lab I want to be based in the world. And I was like, you know what, let me try MIT, because I had, being one of the top engineering institutions in the world. So I had always wanted to just know what is going on there. And when I was choosing what to research, so the fellowship also challenges students to step outside what they've been researching and try something different. So maybe you were in chemical engineering, they ask you to try something in computer science. You know nothing about computer science, they force you to try something new. And so for me, I was coming from aeronautics, cooling of aircraft engines, the only things, and before that even I was coming from mechanical engineering. But then from there I was like, you know what, let me try something I know nothing about. And it was rocket fuels. And I was just feeling like a baby all over again. But then the group at MIT, the reason why I'm narrating the story is that I chose that group at MIT because they were doing so much research around opening up access to space, particularly for developing countries, like most African countries. Yeah, and the professor was doing a lot of research collaboration with institutions in Kenya. And the reason why I chose that is because I just wanted my research to kind of have a connection to where I come from and the people I like and I love.
Kenyan element.
Yes, or an African element.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I really like what you said about perspectives, because for me the experience was more or less the same. Right. I found myself in Daejeon, South Korea. Most of the time I was the only black dude within a certain mile radius and all that. Yeah. And there's one specific course that really opened up my eyes to how everything is about perspective and how culture. We normally talk about the science revolution. When it wasn't the science revolution, it was just something that was happening in Europe, and there was no revolution as such. Right? So for me, perspective was sort of forced onto me by the course. It was science and technology policy being done by a professor from Harvard, but he's Asian. So his perspective was criticizing this narrative of a singular science. And he was trying to give examples of things that are not exactly science, but they're still knowledge. The example was the one that I was about to give before the cameras were rolling, where there's apparently a tribe in Mali called the Dogon. Now, in the 70s, when the French were doing a bit of anthropology, walking around talking to these tribes, trying to figure out where they came from, the Dogon were pointing to a specific point in the sky, and they were saying, we came from there. And the French would look up and they would assume that it was a specific star that they were pointing towards, but the Dogon guys were insisting, no, it's not that one, it's the one next to it. But looking up, you couldn't see anything there because we didn't have the telescopes or any optical equipment to be able to see it. So around 1992, we developed the possibility to look at that particular patch of sky, and we discovered that Sirius is a dual star system. So this tribe in the middle of nowhere in Africa had this knowledge. They couldn't explain it, right? They couldn't explain it how they got it, but it was still knowledge. Right? So it really made me realize that it's all about perspectives. In as much as there's a hard scientific and very rational edge to all these things, it's all about perspectives. So now, what was the most challenging academic projects you worked on, specifically during your PhD? Is there anything that really stood out that you were like, for me, whenever I have problems and stuff that is pending, I have nightmares about it?
Yes.
I don't know if it's the same with you.
Same. I actually got depressed. And it was challenging in the sense that I'm in a new country. Oh yeah, and we didn't talk about did we talk about the culture shock? I'll bring it up here. So I'm in a new country. I'm adapting to no ugali for an extended period of time because I had not known where to buy unga ya ugali. The weather is just not weathering, as we say in Nairobi. Yeah, because I arrived in Oxford late September. Although for them it was still summerish, like you were starting to go to autumn, but then for me it was really cold. Yeah, obviously, I could not leave the house. And they were like, okay, if you cannot leave the house now in October, what will you be doing in December?
The real winter.
Yes, I'll be in a fireplace maybe. So anyway, so in the middle of adapting to the life in the UK, Oxford, no sooner had you arrived than you are, like you just arrive and the train is gone.
They throw you into the deep end.
Yeah. So you literally have to survive. And so, yes, I was adapting to new. It was the first time I was living out of Kenya for a long time, away from family. And then I have to adapt to rigorous life in the lab. This is like elite institution. And so the standards are really high. I did not know, and I like sharing this story, and even maybe that's why I wrote the book, because you can literally start from I feel like I started from negative, not even zero level. Yeah, I did not know how to do like proper reference management. I was learning for the first time because although we did an undergrad project where we did a final year project, it wasn't like super high research level. And so I was learning how to do reference management, as simple things as how to design presentable slides, how to communicate, all those things. On top of that, I also had to learn ANSYS. For some of you guys who understand ANSYS, it's a simulation software. You input characters in the computer and then it simulates real life experiences or characteristics of something. And so almost half of my PhD was on computer simulations. And I could not use ANSYS. It was not the first time per se, but it was really the first time I was like using the thing. I heard about it while in undergrad, but it was the first time I had to learn this software really well to the level that I can apply for my research, PhD level research. And ilinipeleka mbio. Yes, so the first 6 months when I arrived at Oxford, they were terrible. So that was the hardest part of adapting in the UK. And I want to say that was the toughest. And also because, like I had mentioned earlier, I was at the intersection of minority. Like I was the only Black woman there. We were only 2 Blacks in that lab. And so I had this burden to like represent Black women really well, to represent the entire continent of Africa really well. And I know you are nodding because you understand.
You are literally an ambassador. You didn't choose it, but you're literally an ambassador.
Yes.
And that's a double-edged sword.
Yes.
Because when you succeed,
oh
yeah, very nice.
Yes.
These Africans are very good.
I know.
So I'm speaking with a Korean accent because that was the situation.
But
when you fail,
they're like these Africans are lazy and they are failing. So you try and project. It's a lot of burden for one person to carry.
You have to be very self-conscious.
Which is not good for research. Because research and PhD, you have to fail. Failing is just like part of the process. So, anyways, so that was what was happening. And you were asking the hardest part. I want to say that was the hardest part. But then, like as time went by, I kind of adapted. I found my own voice. I wore my afro. I used to have afro confidently, although people would be asking questions and whatever. But I just kind of found confidence, but towards the end really. But the hardest part was the first year.
Yeah, I agree, and I really like that you've added an element of something that is not exactly academic, but it's actually influenced how you're feeling, for example. Like your hair, those tiny things. Somebody would not really assume that it affects how your demeanor is, but it actually makes a huge difference.
They do.
Yes.
They do. They do. Yeah.
And now, this one is the book. I want to ask you a question about the book.
Yes.
You already mentioned a bit something about the answer, but I want you to expound on it. So at what point did you realize that you're going to write a book, and why? So personally, I've had a bit of experience. I was exposed to writing reports and all that pretty early in my undergraduate. And I can't imagine someone writing as much as you need to write in PhD to be able to be productive. Deciding that I want to write some more. So can you please talk about that?
Oh yeah. And I know Pauline is smiling back there because I shared this story as an encouragement or as a lesson. And for many people, they'll be surprised. I had 45% in English in that KCP.
Wow.
And so, yes.
Can I say how much I had?
Yeah, I know double mine.
99.
Yeah. Oh my God. Like double mine plus 9. Jesus. Agar.
But continue. Sorry for interrupting.
But then actually this is the best lesson. No condition is permanent.
Yeah.
Yes. So I was trying to illustrate that story that I had 2004 I had 45% in English. But then when I was starting to write this book 20 years later, or thereabout. So you were asking when I decided.
When did you decide?
So it's a long story, but I was also sharing with putting that in 2017. It's another long story. It was as a result of a serious heartbreak, character development, as we like to call it in Nairobi. And character development can make you do lots of things. And the first thing that it helped me was because I had a lot of free time, and I was, after coming from that depression moment, someone left you and whatever, and a friend was like, you know what? Each time when you used to talk with your guy, you can use this time to read, like spend it so that you are less depressed. And so I started reading, and she helped me pick the first book. It was for her, it was a page turner, but for me, because I was not a reader, it was hectic reading that book. But then I had just like one page after one page, maybe per day, and then checking my phone and getting depressed. But then slowly, really, and fast forwarding, I kind of got hooked into reading. So reading kind of came late for me in 2017, and now everyone I meet, I'm just encouraging them. I'm encouraging them to try and read, because it's really expanded my mind in a way I cannot explain. So during that time, while reading one book after another, I was actually looking back the other day, and I've been trying to read like at least 20 books per year. Yeah. And during that moment, there is a book I was reading, and ilifika mahali I was like, even me, I can write a book. Like seriously, this guy just wrote like their life story, and then at the end of it, some lessons. And I was really hooked with that like simple language, because again, English is not my thing. And so it was now during that time I was like, I think I can write. Like this book is really nice, interesting. I'm learning a lot. I think also I can write. And then now it was during that time I was like, and if I'm going to write something, I'm going to write about my experiences doing a PhD, because in Kenya, it's very rare to have someone do a PhD and get a PhD before 30 years and get an engineering PhD as a woman, as a young woman. And so I just wanted to say this thing is a roller coaster. It's a bit difficult, but it's something you can do, especially if you're interested in research and you're curious. And yes, so that is how it started, and that is why, or the reasoning behind why I wanted to write the book. Yeah.
Interesting thing is that, so there was a book, I think I mentioned it last time.
You did, yes.
I started writing a book based on that Londa Magere.
Yeah.
I was really the reaction of people whenever I gave them snippets to read them really discouraged me, because it made me realize that I have a very bad, dark sense of humor. So
okay,
So it reduced a lot of lethargy. It's the reason why you asked me last time when the book is going to be published.
Yes.
I think it will take some time.
Okay, maybe you should publish. You call it what? They call it what? Just the first kind of Yes, and so then you can.
The reason why I was mentioning that is that when you're writing a book, of course, there are going to be days when you have writer's block and you have to get something that's going to get you off.
Yeah.
Make you pick up that pen.
Yes.
For you, do you have a specific routine that you'd use whenever you had writer's block, or you would write whenever you wanted and then not write whenever you didn't want?
Goodness, do you know, I think I was obsessed. I feel like there was something that possessed me during that time. I look back now and I'm like, I wrote this thing. And anyway, let me give you actually the best tip for writers out there and aspiring authors. What helped me in hindsight is series of journaling. So around the same time when my friend was asking me to pick up reading as a way of distracting myself from the character development, journaling also was another thing she suggested. Like you can tell your friends about all the depressive, whatever you're feeling, but there are some other things you can't tell your friends, and so you can then pour all those things in a physical book. Although I don't recommend a physical book, I personally prefer like online, so that I can anytime I get ideas, I just open my phone and I can type it in. And so it's from that time, anytime I'm watching a movie, I'm reading a book, I'm having a conversation, I'm jogging, I'm doing whatever, and then I get an idea, I write it down. A very good example, the other day, when you go to my LinkedIn feed, the most recent shared, widely engaged, and many people shared and commented was a story I was giving about a movie, a series actually I was watching, and literally I was watching that. I'm not sure if you saw, but it was this it's a legal drama, and there is a judge in that series who doesn't allow people to say. When you're defending someone, like, oh, Agar didn't do this, blah, blah, blah. So this judge is like, hey, lawyer, please, at the end of every statement, add "in my opinion." So you just can't say Agar didn't steal the book because of the evidence I've given. And then you have to end by saying "in my opinion." I don't know if it's, I have nothing. Pauline will tell us if that is true in law, that happens when you're defending someone. But anyway, so when I was watching that series, I was just like, you know what? I really like this, because people tell you, you can't do that. You can't be this. You can't achieve that. But they are basing on their lived experiences and what they've seen and that moment. But then, like, times do change, and you are different. You have different experiences. And who tells you can't do that? Like, you might be able to do it. And so anyway, I was just writing that. Then when you're giving people pieces of advice, add "in my opinion." Like, you cannot do a PhD in my opinion because of this and this. Anyway,
you cannot write a book
in my opinion. Just because you had 45% in English, you cannot write. Actually, someone told me, hey, you failed in English, Bana. Like, why do you think you can write a book? Like, in that condescending way. And I hope they had added "in my opinion." Anyway, just to say that I was trying to illustrate that now while I was watching that series and that idea came, and I remember just pouring all those experiences where people have told me, you cannot do mechanical engineering because you are a girl. And I was like, I wish they had said "in my opinion," because then I went on and did mechanical engineering. You cannot go into Oxford. I remember classmates telling me when they saw that I was applying to Oxford. I didn't tell many people, but I think they just saw on my screen. And then they were like, hey, I did not know Oxford work on campuses. You know the way you have JQuat?
Wow.
You know the way you have JQuat main campus, and then you have less the other campuses.
So walikuwa nakwambia utaenda Oxford.
They could not think that it's the Oxford. According to them, if I'm applying to Oxford, surely it's not the Oxford. It must be a campus of Oxford.
Wow.
So anyway, so those things, while I was now journaling, I was just thinking back to so many moments where people told me you cannot do this and this, and I was wishing they had added "in my opinion," and I was wishing that we can always remember to add when we are giving advices, pieces of advice, to say "in my opinion." And so in my journal, I have so many mini episodes of just like random things. And so now when I decided I was going to write the book, I just went back to my time at Oxford, and literally I want to say 80% of the content. Wow. I just needed to sit down and then decide I'm gonna borrow this and expand. This one I'm not adding. This one I'm adding. And so this book, I literally wrote it in a period of 1 year.
Wow.
While at MIT. Okay. Yes. Now during my postdoc, because I had finished my PhD and I was kind of reflecting to the journey, and I had a lot of free time. Because I had this fellowship, and they asked us to just be free. If you want to do more research papers, be free. If you want to build a startup while you are doing postdoc, be free. If you want to write a book, be free. And so I had a lot of outside my lab work, because I was still doing my postdoctoral research. Then a lot of time, I had a lot of free time. And so I just like, within 1 year, I had like enough material, and then the rest.
So it's very interesting. Now that very last part, I was supposed to ask a different question, but then you mentioned something that I think is very important. So I'm gonna have to use this word. These elite institutions. The funny thing is, "don't" is a very rare word.
Yeah.
They're always encouraging you to try.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
I experience it twice.
Yes.
Quite a lot.
Yes.
You're given free reign to do whatever it is you want to do. Your research. I remember the very first research I did was actually as an undergraduate student. Literally as an undergraduate student for a year. They gave me there was a company that wanted a collimator for medical imaging, and I was supposed to optimize it, sensitivity, and So literally, I remember one time being in front of my computer with MCNP, and I was like, I'm doing research as an undergraduate.
Yes.
Which locally you would not really hear that. You would hear a lot of what you cannot do and less of what you can do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if things have changed. Tari teaches people, so maybe he can tell us later his opinion about that. But it's something I noticed. There's so much, go ahead and try. It's okay if you fail. Fail, that's a lesson. I remember you're a aeronautical engineer and all that. So one of the most funny episodes I've ever had was, I think it was Von Braun, the guy who was the godfather of NASA.
Yeah.
So he was doing experiments and failing every single time. And one of his graduate students came to complain to him, telling him, "Oh, professor, we are doing so many things and we're just failing." And then Von Braun told him, no, we're collecting very important data of not how to do things, right? Totally different perspective.
Yes,
yeah?
Yes.
So I'm hoping that sort of mentality and philosophy can percolate to our universities.
Yeah.
We can have more conversations like this with other people in the future.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
Last question, because we are moving out of time and we want some questions from the audience.
Yes.
So this one is going to be a debate kind of. Yeah? So what is the best science fiction ever made, according to you, that includes space travel and rockets and all that? Why? And why? This is a very... I
think we had a brief
exchange. This is a very heated debate. Huh?
Yes,
everyone has an opinion about
their own. Yes. So, like I mentioned, I think I'll just still bring, I don't know if they've done a movie on it, but I'll still bring the Binti science fiction. And for me, again, this goes back to perspective. And the reason why I'm saying perspective is once upon a time I was in a room in the UK, we were women, like it was male dominated, as you know, in engineering. But then there were like two women who moved in, who joined the meeting. And then someone said, "Oh, finally, we are well represented." Like, and the person who was saying was a white woman. But according to me, I'm like, we are not well represented because we only have women and men, white men and white women. We don't have black people or other people who look different color-wise. But then I feel like what you can see, you just see from your perspective and then like that. So like the white woman could see up to women aspect, because then she could share the white aspect. But according to me, there is another aspect you need to add, and the blackness. And the reason I'm sharing this, and for me, Binti stands out by Nedi Okorafor. Yes, and I like her science fiction. And because she's trying to portray, and we were having this debate, that most science fiction, if not 99%, it's coming from white male perspective.
Exactly.
And Western perspective.
Yes.
And so some young little African girl in a village somewhere, they don't even feel included in this thing.
If you tell them science fiction, they don't know what it is.
Or even Mars and going to moon, like it's just removed. It's like Western and white male kind of thing, or male kind of thing. And so I liked Binti, reading story of Binti, and it's just following this main character, story of the main character, who is a young girl from Africa, and she went to space. She's the main character, did amazing things there. And
don't spoil it for...
Sorry, okay. But what I still even remember, so that you know about, or kind of driving the point of perspective, and where you grew up kind of affecting. I remember her story of hair, and she literally had to carry some dye from her village in Africa while going to space to like wherever her hair. And that stood out for me. You're asking, and why? It stood out for me because it's really different from what we are used to seeing, the white male kind of perspective of science fiction. Share yours. You were sharing
agree.
your...
I agree 100%. So for me, I read quite a lot. I read quite a lot. I remember around was it 2014 or 2015? I think it was 2015 in winter. I had this tradition where I would read the Hugo Award-winning book. It's a very nice way to keep track of very good science fiction. It's mainly science fiction. And I came across something that was very different, right? You look at other previous nominees of the Hugo Prize, and then for the first time there was a Chinese author. It was a book translated into English, in Chechen. And I'm very like science fiction, especially which involves rockets, is one of the things I'm artist about. Like, you get very intense about it, and I argue with people online and all that. And I found something that was very different. And I was very curious about it. Cheche, three-body problem. I don't know how many of us are. Cheche, three-body
I think
problem.
People might know from the
Netflix
series as well.
Netflix series.
Yes.
But I don't like it.
Okay, because you read the book.
Yeah. I don't like the series.
Okay.
So it was so different. It was literally Chinese perspective on an alien invasion. Have I spoiled it?
Yeah, a little bit, but not so much.
Okay.
Yes.
it was a very different perspective on something that all of us humans should have an opinion about.
Yeah.
Right? If we have aliens from I don't know how many light years away coming to invade us, everyone should have a say, right? It shouldn't be some dudes in America, because okay, I won't spoil it. But the thing is, it sort of scratches something that I was talking about perspectives. There's so many things that we assume are universal, and it's very acute among Africans, right? We have a very Western perspective on things. Most of the science fiction we watch is about, I don't know, Terminator, one white dude, I don't know, fending off an alien invasion.
Yeah.
When you have other situations where there's a bit of colonization involved. Right? I'm not spoiling anything about three-body problem.
Yeah.
But you can detect.
Yeah.
You can detect.
Yeah.
Even without reading who is the author, when you're reading such books, you can detect the subtle difference between this and something like 2001: A Space Odyssey or something like that. If Dr. has something to say about it, and she can reiterate on her initiatives about mentoring people about scholarships and all that, just so that's the take home. I was told that for presentations, people normally remember the first couple of minutes and the last couple of minutes.
Yes. So lastly, just to say thank you for letting me know about this space and for hosting me here. And just to tell my online audience, I'm not sure if we have questions from there, but I recently started a YouTube channel. It's called GN Inspire. I'm wearing a hoodie here. Or look for Dr. Gladys Ngatich on YouTube. I share or I host inspirational guests. I've hosted Agar here, and I'm mostly just sharing stories of education and career choices and personal development topics, like how to write a strong personal statement, how to write a nice CV for the students who are applying for scholarships and preparing to go for their graduate school. So kindly check it out, and if you do not mind, kindly subscribe. And then the PhD journey that we were talking about today, you can find it online. Just Google the PhD journey by Gladys, or you can go to Nuria, Nuria bookstore, or you can come to Cheche bookstore in Lavington, or you can get it from Amazon in a paperback or a Kindle version. So yeah, that is it. Thank you so much, and thank you guys for showing up. It's late in the evening and it's a weekday, so it means a lot for you guys to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much for listening to our tales and our perspectives on which is the best movie and all that. It's a debate that will continue, I think, till the end of time. Thank you.